Hey everybody, this is Perch, and I posted a video talking, just trying to lay out the sequence of events that happened with Jonathan Hickman and the X-Men and kind of his entry and his exit, and tried to at least pull the information that we knew and some logical conclusions with all this. So a couple people responded in the comments, basically saying, this entire thing was very disingenuous. And I don't think that's a wrong take. I think there is some definite pieces of this that are disingenuous. And I think it's worth taking another step back and looking at everything that's rolled out. And using the X-Men as an example is a good one. So the one that I think is really important for everybody to focus on is what happened in 2018. So in 2018, around October, November, Marvel started putting out a big amount of hype around a relaunched, rebooted, brand new X-Men #1. It was weekly for a while. By the way, as I'm telling you this, remember some of what's going on right now. We're about to go into a big reboot, relaunch of a bunch of X titles. We're going through a big weekly shipping cycle with a group of writers, some of whom are the same people that happened there, with Spider-Man after Nick Spencer's departure. So there's a lot of familiarity about everything I'm about to tell you. So in 2018, where were the X-Men? It was confused because Fox owned the rights to basically the movies. The MCU is blazing ahead with no X-Men. There was this idea of let's deprioritize the X-Men. Let's put our best foot forward with the properties we own. And so you saw the Inhumans kind of attempt to have a big amount of prominence. By the way, kick-started by Hickman during his run with Avengers, and this idea of a Terrigen mist bomb that would add a bunch of Inhumans to the mix and everything else. This was something that came out of a writer's summit that was there. And so, but the idea came, hey, these rights may be coming back. Hey, the X-Men are viable properties. We tried this Inhumans thing. It hasn't really worked. Let's put our best foot forward again with the X-Men. And so you had this Ed Brisson, limited series that happened. And then you had Kelly Thompson, Ed Brisson, ultimately Matt Rosenberg, that group came in and they relaunched X-Men in the late 2018. I think it was. I keep saying October. Some people have said November, but it was that time frame. I think it blurs together for me because the hype really kicked in around 2000. Around 2018, around August is when we really started to know, based on solicitations, everything was coming. And here's the important bit: is Marvel sold this as this is the new creative team. It's going to be huge and impressive, and it's going to we're serious this time. It is extremely key that this is going to be the new future of the X-Men. Jump in now, the perfect jumping on point. They underline that over and over and over, that this is where you want to be. This is what's happening. Cool. Here's the only problem with that. Marvel knew at the time, they knew that this wasn't actually what was going to last. They knew that there was this kind of Hickman plan coming down the road. They were stalling for time. They were buying time. This was the X-Men disassembled. I guess it started in November is what I've to December. And then there was this Age of X-Men kind of mini series at Stroll In, which had Zach Thompson, Lonnie Nadler, Leah Williams, Vita Ayala, Tim Seeley, and it did very, very poorly. But a big reason it did poorly is right about the time that this team started Age of X-Men, and I'd say it's about January, February. It leaked that Hickman was coming in. They're going to relaunch everything in June, July, kind of late summer timeframe. That was incredibly disingenuous. Marvel knew this at the time. They knew Hickman was coming. They knew they were going to do all this. They knew they were basically filling time from November to Hickman's run in the summer. And they went ahead and promoted it to customers and to shops anyway as this is the new thing. Jump in, order a bunch of comics, got some, alternate covers, all that stuff's super huge. They build it as this is the future when they knew it was not. They knew in less than a year it would get restarted again by Hickman. They knew that the big deaths that they were doing, they were killing some characters off. Cyclops was getting, I mean, I think Havoc died, I think, during this run. Anyway, a bunch of like very extreme things happened, especially toward the Rosenberg aspect of this run, that they knew were not going to stick. Yet they sold them to the customers as, the final appearance of an X-Men. Now, granted, death means nothing, but the point is, it was very disingenuous. It absolutely was. I think if you knowingly know something, you put it out and you sell to customers, because whether people like it or not, comic books is still a big speculator industry. So you sold a promise of something that was coming, and then knowing that you were going to do something else. So that brings us to Hickman. At the kind of $1 million question is, at what point did they know, meaning the X office, that things were deviating? Now, in Marvel's defense, and nobody, by the way, will like hearing this, Hickman never said, never in any interview, that he was going to be around for 5 to 10 years, that he was setting up a, huge plan. The closest we ever got to it was some vague statements at the beginning saying it was like a 3-year arc. And even that was not definitive. Okay, well, he started in 2019, went to 2020, went to 2021, got halfway through 2021. He's going to be leaving basically at the end of the year. So that's 2.5 years. If it's true that he was signing on for 3 years, then he missed it by half a year. But all things considered, that's not terrible. Here's the thing, though. I said in Marvel's defense, they never definitively stated this. However, to kind of prove the case that Marvel was being disingenuous about it, Marvel was more than happy to build up this concept of head of X, and Hickman was architecting this vast new universe, and there would be interviews that would go on all the usual suspects around kind of this bigger X-Men world. I think that when I made the prediction, and I know Wes did as well, that Hickman was likely to be leaving this year in 2021, we did at the beginning of the year, people were aggressively pushing back on that. Now, these weren't just lunatic fans that were pushing back on it because, for no reason. They had been led to believe that Hickman was in it for the long run. Now, I would argue it was really obvious to anyone kind of paying attention to the interviews and the Zoom calls and everything else. Hickman was getting deprioritized by himself, it looks like, more and more and more. They were putting more of the focus on Duggan, on Ben Percy, on Leah Williams, on Teenie Howard. Even the run-up of Ten of Swords was a lot about Teenie Howard. They were really pushing kind of Teenie Howard helped architect this. Jonathan Hickman had some ideas, but Teenie Howard really wanted to run with big parts of the story. They were pushing that. So I think the writing was always on the wall. The disingenuous part was Marvel was very content to use Hickman's name as head of X to continue to almost portray the illusion that he was still crafting this multi-year big epic. You could argue, and I think it would be a fair argument, that Marvel is not in the business. Marvel shouldn't come around and fact check every fan theory. Marvel shouldn't come around and say, well, actually, no, he's not part of this. No, he's outside of it. No, that's not what Marvel. Marvel shouldn't do that. They're not in the business of doing that. It's unfair to claim that they should. However, in the interest of good customer relations, both to the retailers and the end customer, I think it's correct. I think it's right to have a good relationship with your customers. And I think by portraying a certain world that is not actually what's going to happen, I don't think that does that. And I do think there's an element of disingenuousness to it. And I do think there's they basically presented a world and the fans ran with it. The fans made up a lot of their own fan theories about who was in charge, how long it was going to go, what was going to happen. I mean, the fans invented a lot of this in their own minds, except Marvel definitely led them down that path. Marvel definitely pointed them in the direction to say, yeah, this, it's going to look like this. Through their own printing, own admissions, own interviews, and everything else, they allowed this presentation of this very Hickman-run world to run rampant, and it did. I think that if now there's going to be some backlash to this whole thing, if now there's going to be some pushback that Marvel did, they basically misled some people, and that Hickman is not as involved, and I mean they will now suffer some backlash. Will it be bad? Who knows? It depends on Marvel's marketing engine for the start of the year, where they reboot all the titles. I mean, we were already seeing that there's new Marauders and a new team, Dakon's on the team. You're seeing a lot of these changes kind of roll out. Maybe it gets people excited. They don't care. But I think the consequence of allowing kind of disingenuous things to happen. I mean, to Hickman's credit, he created a world with House of X, Powers of 10 that was so exciting that he actually made up for a lot of the bad will of what people felt was a bait and switch for those 9 months or so that the Ed Brisson, Kelly Thompson, Matt Rosenberg team. I actually think, to take it another step, I think Matt Rosenberg got a lot of heat for this whole the way it went down. That wasn't his fault. He was a writer just being paid to write some comics, and I think he got branded as this this shyster who basically was faking out all the customers, and I think that was completely unfair to him. I think that was a Marvel situation. So anyway, some people brought up in the comments it's disingenuous, and I guess I just want to say you're right. There definitely is a level of disingenuousness to this, and I definitely think that this was handled in a way that was not ideal, certainly for the company, and dodgy, very dodgy. I'm seeing a lot of people saying, I feel very bad that I dumped a bunch of money into this, and this is the outcome. And yeah, you're right. I think that this is something that's going to hurt Marvel. Every time you do this stuff, and you set the right expectation, you set the wrong expectation, it makes it all the more hard for people to trust you the next time. And I think that's the situation Marvel finds themselves a little bit. They created a scenario where they're going to have to work even harder now to convince people the next time that this is something worth jumping on with. But anyway, let me know more of your thoughts in the comments below. This is a very interesting case study. I think the last 3 years of the XMen titles are fascinating in terms of customer expectations, what you do with them, all the rest. It's in many ways, it's a good playbook of kind of both how to do something well and how not to do something, kind of all in one. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, like and subscribe. Thanks to everybody who supports the channel, and thanks for listening.